The Black and White Football Show, Sundays 6 to 8 p.m. in association with Newcastle Fans TV on Nova Radio Northeast.
So, what's happening, everyone? It's Kev, Newcastle Fans TV and Nova Radio Northeast. This is the Black and White Show, and I'm joined by Johnny and I'm joined by Sam in what is a very newish kit, but it's something I haven't actually seen before on the channel. I'm usually the one that dons the rare tops on the channel, but giving us a run for your money, Sam, aren't you? You all right, lad?
You've got some competition now, my friend. They're easy to find, mate. All you've got to do is go on the Newcastle Fans TV Amazon page.
Oh, that's a shameless plug. I was going to save that for later on, but we'll start with the shameless plugs. But and we're also joined by fellow NE29 brethren, Johnny Greenwood. How are you today, my friend?
Very, very good. It's been lovely in NE29, and
it's been good weather actually.
Yeah, it's been lovely. I think it's just a shame. I think it stops from today, doesn't it? I think it's going to be a bit cooler from tomorrow, but hopefully everybody's okay. I hope everyone.
I've got my fan on over there, so it is warm. But in today's show, in part one, which I'll be presenting, we're going on all takeover news and what we think of what's been said in the media from George Caulkin in particular. In part two, Lee's going to go through the meeting on Monday with George Caulkin, the MPs. Everyone got into a big meeting and they decided to chat it out on Zoom, a bit like we've done in recent weeks and months. But and in part three as well, we've got football potentially coming back as well. German football have announced that they're bringing football back as of next week, and England teams are entering training as of the 18th of May as well, and we're going to give our thoughts on that. But firstly, we're going to go into WhatsApp messages in a moment. But it's been a long week in terms of the takeover, lads. In terms of major news, there hasn't been anything major in terms of like cans or anything like that. But George Caulkin's been in the media quite a bit with his third-party quotes, and there's some very exciting stuff he said, mind. But we'll get onto that in a second. We'll get into the WhatsApp group because Lee's in the background. It's loading up now. But Lee, can you zoom that in a bit? It's quite thingy at the minute. Where I can't say it. Can you say it, Johnny?
A little bit. It just says good training ground facilities will attract the top players at Newcastle. From Alan in Newcastle. I think that's probably a fair statement, Kyle, because if you've got the training facilities there in place for whoever comes in, which if it's say a Pochettino, as we've mentioned before, or a Benitez, it will attract the top players. However, it just seems like that will take a little bit of time.
Yeah, well, the training ground is something we're actually going to be going on about because the third-party quotes have been about the training ground as well. I mean, it's not the first point that I'm going to be making in my section one, but the training ground is very important. And Sam, I'll come to you, mate. The training facilities have been spoken about, and that picture always crops up with the wheelie bins and all the half the first team in them. So the training ground is probably one of the first things on the list you'd look to update, wouldn't you?
Of course it is. It's not had a major revamp since the days of Sir Bobby, which is mental if you think about it. It's had the odd lick of paint and the odd thing here and there, but in terms of properly renovated and rejuvenated, you're talking back to 2002, 2003.
Which is madness for a Premier League club.
It is madness. If you think what's happened since then, it's crazy. I mean, obviously, Ashley and co had their plans out, was it 2014, 2015, something like that, in the days of Pardew. And then it all went quiet. So it's got to be up there, top of the list. There was the infamous story from January when ASM was showing round Sumer from Lille, FaceTiming him with the training ground, and took one look at it and nah. So it's got to be high on the list of priorities.
Well, Rafa Benitez spoke about when he left the club, didn't he? He was on about the promise this and that, and all they did was paint the walls. I mean, paint is good. It can do good things. I mean, my walls have been painted black. It makes a difference. But for a Premier League club that need training facilities to attract better players and things like that, you need more than just paint, I think. But to move on from that slowly, one of the third-party quotes that I've got here in front of us now, George Caulkin tweeted the other day, "NUFC are the last great uncut diamond in the Premier League. It just needs cutting and polishing. The diamond has been there all along, but nobody's wanted to spend the time, effort, and money to show that duel in the best light. I don't know. I mean, third-party quotes have been a thing, like last year with Peter Redden and things like that. The BCG group were talking about how much they were looking forward to owning Newcastle United and what they were going to do. But to hear that quote, it's actually really refreshing, because they want to come in and they want to make Newcastle the great club it is, and not just settle for mediocrity or 15th, like perhaps maybe Mike Ashley has done in the past 13 years. Johnny, I'll come to you first. Is that the type of thing that excites you, seeing things like that in the media? I know it's not an official, so it's not an official quote from the PIF. It's not an official thing from them, but is it the type of thing that excites you?
It's refreshing, but it's a nice thing to say, and I think they're quite right in what they're saying. If it's true, I've got no reason to believe it isn't true. But they're saying the right things. You know, I've never bought a diamond, but I'm sure Sam has over the with his wages and his salaries over the years. So I'm sure that he can tell us how expensive these diamonds are. But no, in all seriousness, it's the right noises want to be hearing. But again, a lot of people are going to be saying ifs, buts, maybes when this takeover gets done. Look, by what George Corkin said, it is literally a case of, you know, this Premier League test being approved and then the transferring of funds. So if those two things are to be done, then yes, we can start getting very, very excited. But again, we've heard all these promises before from the likes of Mike Ashley over the last few years. So we'll take everything with a pinch of salt.
To be fair though, Johnny, I think these are a little bit more serious than Mike Ashley ever was. I mean, Mike Ashley came into the club and says he wanted to be challenging for the big trophies and whatnot, but was very quick to see how much lies that was, because you remember 2008, and I think it was Irish guy Ramsey who says on Twitter, if there was a season he'd like to see a Netflix version of, it would be the 08-09 season at Newcastle United, with the free changes of managers, the protests, all the stuff with Mort and the potential takeover here, get out of our club there. It just seemed to be absolutely carnage at the club at the time, and it's just been one lie after another, and somehow after 13 years, Mike Ashley's still here. But I've went off course a little bit. Oh, what? Sorry, Johnny?
I was just going to say, sorry, Kyle. It's funny you should mention it, because obviously this is a little spoiler for people that are watching this on YouTube. I've done an interview with Jose Enrique just a couple of days ago, which will be out very soon. And when I mentioned that, I asked the question to him. I said, was it tough for that first couple of years? In particular, that was the season you mentioned, 2008-09, obviously the season we got relegated. And he didn't really blame the managers, he blamed the players. That's a little spoiler for us. I'm not going too much further. But it was more what they could do more. And it was quite refreshing, actually, but that should be out soon.
So in terms of what players he's blaming, would players in particular have like a certain book that came out recently attacking certain Newcastle United legends, them type of players?
I think he said no comment on that.
It's a normal one, especially for Newcastle in any way. But not only that, Colton's came out and squashed the myth that's been going around on Newcastle social media regarding this. It's the exclusivity apparently ends in mid-May for the PIF lot, but with what he said that's irrelevant, because everything else barring the test, the fit and proper persons test, everything barring that's in place. So exclusivity is kind of irrelevant now, which is a good thing. It's a refreshing thing to have, because I remember Rob in particular having a couple of queries regarding that. So is it nice is it refreshing, Sam, to have that in place, so it's not just a case of I've went blank. it's not just a case of the deal hinges on this test, you know. So if the deal hinges on the test and only the test, no other party can get involved, like the Americans that were linked a couple of weeks ago. Do you think that's more refreshing, that we can just hinge on and wait on the result of this Premier League deal?
Yeah, I think at this point, obviously NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, are irrelevant now.
Yeah.
I think Corkins also said that the deal's been signed off from kind of both sides of the deal. So it is just this Premier League test that it hinges on. Obviously, it's much maligned with TV companies getting involved and Amnesty International getting involved, but I don't think that will interfere in the grand scheme of things. Delay possibly, interfered no. But the thing is now, the problem is we're all sat at home waiting for news, aren't we?
Pretty much.
We're all getting impatient. We're all kicking our heels. We're desperate for any sort of nugget of news of anything takeover related. So anything that's said's just magnified tenfold.
Yeah, and Johnny's family love making a racket. Johnny's family love making a racket. To be honest, I can't hear anything, mate. I don't know about people at home. Let us know in the chat if you hear anything, but I can't hear much. Like,
no, not no.
But I'm going to go back onto the stuff with the training ground, because as of today, actually, Colton reported in the Athletic this morning, along with Chris Waff, that there's another following third-party quote. We'll be starting the training ground from scratch. There's a lot we don't know. What would we need? Can we do it all in Benton training ground, or would we need to move? We're excited and we have lots of ideas, but this is going to take time. Now, again, as I said before, the training ground is something that we need to really sort out. Rafa Benitez was the biggest fan of this when he was at the club and shed the most light on it, that the training ground did need looked at. And if Newcastle are going to look to go to that next level, Johnny, wouldn't you think the training ground is something that needs to be looked at pretty quickly before they look at maybe going after a top player? Because if these new owners are going to come in, you'd want everything shiny, polished in terms of a package to say to them, look, this is what we have, kind of thing. Would you think the training ground is something that needs to be looked at straight away? Yeah,
it does, because it hasn't had anything done to it in a long time. Look, we've been in Benton for about 20-25 years maximum, so it's going to need a bit of work doing to it. But if you want to compete with the bigger clubs, or compete with even Leicester's new state-of-the-art training ground that they want to put out, is amazing. If you want to do that, that'd be great. My only problem is it's just going to take a little bit of time. If you move to a different bit of land, like the only place that I'm thinking off the top of my head, Kyle, is where they normally do the Hoppins in Jesmond, which is a lot of land. If you'd be able to put that as a training ground, that potentially you could do. I don't know the ins and outs with that. But if you're already based at Benton, look, Benton could be just knocked down and rebuilt again. To be brutally honest with you, I think
there's a lot of space there,
at that stage. There is a lot of space, of course there is, but obviously there's buildings around it, of course, as well. But again, if you're talking about priorities, is that the top of my priority? It's up with the top of my priority list. I think what I would like to see first is probably a better playing squad and a better manager, and then they can decide how they, or the manager in particular, can decide how they want to implement their new training ground, because that's how you've got to look at it, like that. They can help and go, well, what did you have at Spurs? If you're looking at Pochettino, what was it like at Real Madrid, Rafa? Is there anything that you would like in that to make it as good as we can make it? You can either go to Manchester United and Tottenham's training grounds and have a look and see, because they're the ones that you go, they're the best. Let's have a look and see what we can do and see if we can compare and compete with that. But I'd probably put that as third on my list at the minute. But it's got to be something that they need to do. If they can get it done in the next 3 to 5 years, hopefully everything goes okay, then I think it'll be very, very good.
A better manager, Johnny. I thought you were one of Steve Bruce's best fans. I
think Steve Bruce has done a good job. I really do. But if these owners are serious, and I have to assume that they are, if they want to take Newcastle to the next level, is Steve Bruce the man that's going to do that? In my personal opinion, it's not. He's not the man to do that. However, when you look at the fact this season, he's got us to an FA Cup quarter-final currently. We're 8 points clear of safe, 8 points away from the Europa League. We're in a comfortable position. And we have to look back. We'll probably have to look back at this season, rightly or wrongly, for how this takeover could potentially happen. Because it will go, Steve put us in a position that the likes of Amanda Staveley can go, right, let's see how far you can take it now.
Yeah, well, John B in the chat said you want Rafa and Rondon back. Are you in agreement, or would you go for Pochettino, Johnny?
I've been asked so many times, and I've always been swayed towards Rafa. It looks like Pochettino's number. It seems like Pochettino's number one. From what you hear, I think I was speaking to the Red TV not long ago, and I said to them, I think Rafa element would be quite romantic in the sense that he comes back and he can, if he wins the FA Cup with Newcastle, for example, it would be like, that's my job. That is what I've wanted to do, is to try and see if you can make this better. In terms of Rondon, I think he'd be a perfect sign to come
you've
back
got to
in.
bring Rondon back, man. I'm literally his biggest fan.
It won't
Sam,
it won't be as much as 16 million, so that's a good start as it is. Anyway.
Exactly, very cheap for a very good striker as well, especially in today's market. Sam, I'll come to you, mate. Who would you prefer in terms of a manager? Because obviously they're looking towards next week, which we'll come on to in a minute, when the Premier League test is supposed to have hit its 4-week mark. But in terms of a manager, are you in agreement with Johnny? Would you elect for a Rafa Benitez, or would you maybe go for a Pochettino, or would you even give Steve Bruce a chance? I mean, Liam said in the chat that Steve Bruce belongs in the Championship. Do you agree with Liam?
His best record is in the Championship.
True.
To be fair, just to echo what Johnny said, Bruce has done a fantastic job under the circumstances this season. But I do agree, if the new owners are serious, then he's probably not the man to lead us into next season, at least. In terms of Benitez or Pochettino, I'm very much team Pochettino for me now. Bit of a personal thing. I don't really like managers coming back. I don't think it works out too well.
Well, how did you feel when Kevin Keegan came back in 2008?
Obviously, I was elated, but it didn't work out, did it?
Maybe not, but at the same time, it does give you that feeling, because Rafa, when he was at Newcastle, he gave the slight bit of hope that we didn't have in like a 13-year period. And to be honest, I think Rafa Benitez was the difference between us maybe being where we are now in the Premier League to being where maybe Sunderland are now in League One. I'm not saying we would have got relegated again to League One, but I still think we might still be in the Championship if Rafa had left that season. So I think Rafa, it's a safe bet for me. I mean, you look at his track record. You look at how loved he is up here. I know there's people that have went against him because he left last summer, but I think they'd be straight on board if he came back, no doubt about it. I know in terms of style of football, he's worse off than Pochettino. Pochettino plays lovely football, but I think it would make sense for Rafa. Not only that, Amanda Staveley, who's on screen, she was first interested in Newcastle United when Rafa Benitez was manager, and that's probably something to take into account as well. But let us know in the chat through WhatsApp what you think. Me and Johnny think Rafa Benitez should come back, and Sam thinks Pochettino. But get your comments in, let us know. But I'm going to move on.
Back me up for Team Pot.
Indeed. I know Liam in the chat's a massive fan of Pochettino, so I know you've got at least one fan there, Sam. But I'm going to move the gears a little bit. House of Sword, which is a respected media outlet in Saudi Arabia, they've released an article saying the following: the impending announcement of PIF's takeover Newcastle United was delayed from the planning date of Monday this week. Over a small few details. The PIF, Newcastle United, and Premier League each have a complex set of regulations and requirements. This has led to due diligence being drawn out on as part of the Premier League, exacerbated by current lockdown in both UK and KSA. But we can report that in terms including figures and deposit has been completed, the Newcastle United board are confident they will be able to announce a deal formally at most next week. But Sam, me and you've been talking about this in our private group on Facebook, and you seem to think something might come up early next week, maybe Tuesday to Thursday. So what do you think regarding that? Do you think it will be Tuesday or Thursday next week, or do you think it'll drag on more?
The longer it drags on, the more concerned you get. Again, to my previous point, that we're all sat at home twiddling our thumbs, waiting to crack open a can. And
well, you've already done that, haven't you?
Well, yeah, they can only stay in there so long. I think I need to pop out for some more essentials, actually. But and that's by the by. But the thing is, obviously, there's a pandemic going on. It's the Premier League are probably not at full capacity. They're also going through Project Restart. So there's lots of stuff going on.
That's true.
There's obviously various objections coming through as well. I think Colkin said they're confident of it just happening They didn't put a timeline on it. It'll happen when it happens.
Well, Adam Shield,
Adam Shield,
is that Amanda Staveley photo in my personal collection? Well, I'll have you know, Adam, it's not. But Lee has them in his file and uses them for the stream to put on screen. So I'll have you know it might be in Lee's personal collection for a certain bank for later on in the evening. But I'll let Lee just explain that one in part 2. But Johnny, in terms of news regarding Cairns, when do you think news will come up? Are you looking towards next week? Are you just like kind of along for the ride? If news comes out, it comes out. If not. What do you think?
I think obviously they get 4 weeks to do this test, don't they? This Premier League directors test. So
yeah.
I think next week would be the 4th week, which again, it's understandable. They need to do all the checks, which I completely understand. If I was at the top of the Premier League chain, I would want to do all the checks on any potential takeover for a Premier League club because it could damage their brand. We don't know that. I think the one thing I would say is that we don't hear anything very close. As in the Premier League don't announce anything by, say, Thursday next week. Then I think alarm bells may be going because I think you go, oh, maybe they might have just failed this test. Look, what you hear from everybody, and you have to include all the journalists that are reporting on this deal. Everybody expects us to go through, so we have got to assume this is going to go through unless we hear otherwise. What I would say is that, look, if we can hear something by this time next week, then we're doing the radio show. I think it's next Friday we're doing the radio show. If we're in a mood, if we could potentially have a celebration of a radio show, that'd be absolutely fantastic because it would definitely lift spirits after what's been a terrible couple of months in the world, or in particular in Newcastle. But again, I'm not getting too concerned yet. I think if I would be more concerned if I was hearing negativity in that a couple of journalists would be arguing about the fact that they don't think the deal's going to be done. Look, it's what we're on now, May the 10th, is it today?
No.
So, or May the 9th. May the 9th. Look,
if you're listening on Nova.
If you listen on Nova Radio, it's live on the Sunday night, which is May the 10th. You know what you're trying to say, anyway. No, I would assume if it's all done and above board, if it's not done by a week on Monday, then I think there's been an issue and there's been a problem. But from what you hear, it should be absolutely fine.
But if the Premier League reject a fit and proper persons test, I'm not saying that they're going to with PIF. I'm not saying that at all. But wouldn't they have to release a statement as to why or anything like that? I mean, that's a possibility.
I don't think the Premier League would. I think what they would do, they would keep it in-house. And I think they would just tell journalists on the side. I don't think the Premier League would want to do that. I don't think Newcastle would want to do that. I think it'll be hush, hush, just let you know something's happened. This is why it's not happening straight away. And you'll probably hear it at 10:30 on a Sunday night or a Monday night. And everyone will be like, oh, I can't believe it's happening again with Mike Ashley, etc., etc., etc. So I don't think it'll be a formal statement. But you hear that they want to buy another football club in Brazil. So I think they'll be absolutely fine. If there was a massive issue, I think the government would have either intervened or the Premier League would side towards the beIN Sports Group because, like I say, it's just been it's been played out in front of the public, which Mike Ashley didn't want, but too late now. It looks like it's going to be done.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think. With it being coming up to 4 weeks now, I'm expecting to hear something next week, whether it's failed or it's went through, and obviously we can celebrate. But I think next week's a massive week. I know we've said that the past 2 weeks going by, but I think from what George Colgan has said, it does look like something might be said or something reported major next week, so we can come to the Black and White show next Friday with some good news.
Sunday.
But, well, next Sunday, if you're on Nova Radio Northeast, which you can catch between 6 and 8 p.m. on each Sunday. But there's another shameless plug for you. But over the past week, in terms of Takeover talk, that's kind of we're pretty much done. But over the past week, there's been a couple of polls on Twitter and over social media who the main primary source would be, who is your main primary source to go to. And George Colgan won the poll. But I want to come to you, Sam, because you obviously run the Twitter for Newcastle Fans TV, and we're like a secondary source. So who's your favourite primary source to go to in terms of believable news and whatnot?
The polls are right in saying George Culkin and Chris Wath, the Athletic boys, they do a fantastic job over there. I'd be looking at Luke Edwards as well. I know Lee's a fan of him because he questions everything and he don't muck about. He's good. He's a good one to follow. He's with the Telegraph now, I believe. They would
Sky?
be, yeah. They're a kind of obvious one. Sky Sports is everyone knows of Sky Sports. I mean,
yeah, true.
What else are you going to watch? So they're the obvious ones. But yeah, as the comment on screen rightly says, yeah, George Culkin's the man.
Aye, true. Are you got any favourites, Johnny, that is different to what's already been said? Or are you happy with what Sam said in terms of favourite journalists? Or are you got anyone else in mind?
I know who I don't like. No, in terms of Chris Wath and George Corkin, they're the main ones for me, along with Pete Graves and Keith Downey. Keith Downey, anyone that has maybe the rights. I think obviously you look at the likes of Sky, you look at the likes of BT. I know they don't have really like a main reporter. The BBC, especially in the UK, they're the ones that obviously pay a lot of money for these Premier League rights. So you'd expect more to hear from them. But if anything breaks with Keith Downey, Pete Graves, George Corkin, Chris Wath in particular, and I would say, yeah, I do trust them more. I think some people, I don't have to mention the names, but I think some people are there just to represent a brand, and they'll say that they're in the know. They'll say they know bits and bobs, but they're actually doing it for their own, persona. I think we all know who it is, and we're not going to mention that person's name. However, I think what we can say is that you look at the likes of a Chris Wath, at George Corkin, the men that I've mentioned, you genuinely think they care for the football club. You believe in what they say. They believe the passion from why they want to do this. And I know Lee's going to touch on about the meeting that they had on Zoom. And it was just nice. It's just nice to see so many people that have a genuine connection. Luke Edwards, another person I can't sing his praises high enough because he's not from the area, but gets the area, is asking the important questions and wants Newcastle to do well. And he's not even meant to be a Newcastle fan. He's a Leyton Orient fan, isn't he? So that's what you want. That's good journalism. That's what we want to hear.
Nothing
because
wrong
we're
with
Newcastle
not
fans.
being from the area.
If you're not from NE29, then it's a bit of a problem with me, Kyle. No, I'm only joking. In all seriousness, but they're the ones for sure. There's a couple that I could mention off the top of my head that I would never trust in a million years because they're just there for their own personal gain, and I think it's pointless. You just want to mute them.
Well, where Twitter's concerned, we've talked about the best primary sources to go on the site. Sam, I'll come to you. What's the best secondary source to go to on Twitter?
At Newcastle Fans TV on Twitter, a great mix of secondary news and classic GIF-based and clip-based banter. Lovely stuff.
And if you're not on Twitter and you're on Facebook, I'd fully recommend Newcastle Fans TV for that as well. Myself, Paul, and Lee and Bits and Bobs as well. We've just hit 24,000 followers on the Facebook page. It's doing very well at the minute, so I can only thank each and every one of you that follow that. If you don't follow it and you're watching the live stream now or listening on Nova Radio Northeast, please go and give her a follow or go and give her a follow on Twitter as well with Sam. Both are really well run and it's been
Instagram
good.
As well before Lee.
Yeah, Instagram as well. It's going under. It's under the radar Instagram, but it's doing very well. It's close to hitting 10,000, I believe. So yeah, onwards and upwards on all platforms. But we're gonna go to WhatsApp in a second. I'm just gonna have a look through the live chats, lads. I've seen a comment before. It went away now, but it was asking the question: if the takeover doesn't go through, what happens next? Which is a fantastic question. Johnny, I'll come to you first. What actually does happen? Because I think the morality of everyone would just be through the floor.
I don't even want to know what would happen if that was the case. Obviously, hear about obviously the American bidders that potentially would do a deal straight away if this wasn't to happen. I think we'll just talk about journalists as well. All those journalists that have gone full force that this takeover is going to happen, and it hasn't. Everyone will be looking at them going, "I can't believe you've misled us," or they'll might blame them, but it's the territory with what you do in that sort of field. But in terms of the actual Newcastle fans that maybe aren't journalists as well, it would be a kick in the balls to say the least. It really would be, because we feel like we're so close for Mike Ashley leaving, and that would be obviously such a massive thing. But yeah, I think all the WhatsApp messages are there, so I'll let you continue, Kyle.
Aye. Well, we're on WhatsApp now, and I think I can get a census of what's being said. What do you think if the league are back on track? How will the players perform? So if it goes behind closed doors, which we'll be talking about more so in section 3, but how do you think the players will react, Sam, playing behind closed doors? Do you see some weird scores happening? Do you see some upsets? What do you think?
Possibly, yeah. Especially if it's going to be played at neutral venues, which again I'm sure we'll go a bit further into in part 3. But it's completely unknown territory. I suppose the German league is going to be a bit of a litmus test for it. So
yeah,
there could be a fair few surprises sprung.
And we've got one from Jack as well. Just for your question, mate. Assuming we get a large transfer budget, assuming so, what realistic transfer signings would you look to go for, lads? Johnny, I'll come to you, mate. Who would you really realistically go for in terms of a transfer target?
I'd try and see if we could get Wilfried Zaha. I think that'd be a good first signing. I think he would potentially lead Crystal.
We don't get penalties.
Come on, Sam. He's on his day when he wants to take players on, and if he's under the right manager, I think Pochettino potentially or Rafa could get more Pochettino. I have to say, would get the best out of him. Yes, it would cost a lot of money, but I think he's ready for a new challenge. I think he's ready to try and see if he can take himself to the next level. I think it's a realistic signing. We'll talk about journalist Kaveh Solokol, who works with Sky Sports. I follow on Twitter. He's mentioned if the new potential. If this potential takeover happens and the new owners want Koulibaly. Now, this defender's been being one of the most rated defenders in a long, long time in the likes of Manchester United, Man City, all the big teams really want him. I think he's worth like £70 million. So, look, if we could get him, that would be a massive statement of intent by all means. But if you're going more realistic, I would like maybe Callum Wilson from Bournemouth. I think he potentially could be a good first signing. Just trying to think of somebody else really. Maybe I think maybe a creative midfielder. I think you look at Wolves, you look at Neves, Moutinho, sort of the caliber of those sort of players. You're thinking, Newcastle are kind of dying for one of them. So it'd be interesting to see what happens. But I'm sure Sam's probably got a couple of players as well. And
well, you disagreed on Wilfried Zaha. Why do you disagree, Sam?
He's not for me. Not my kind of player. We've got ASM, we've got Almiron. Okay, we do need
Christian
some strength in depth.
Who could forget?
True that, but we do need some strength in depth. But Zaha wouldn't be my main focus. Funnily enough, whilst we're on transfer targets, my latest article on NewcastleFansTV.com goes through my top 5 signings. So head on over to there. But I'd be looking at one player that we've been linked to this week quite heavily is Donny van der Beek. Yes, please. And I'd be looking as well. I'm not going to give all the ones I mentioned in my article a mention, but I'd be looking at getting Mbabu back. I think he'll solve all our problems on that right side of defence.
I agree. We do need a right back. I know Manquillo is decent, but we need someone else to come in. Personally, I think we need a centre forward desperately. We've needed a centre forward for a long, long time now, and I know we've spoke back and forth on this channel about Joe Linton, but he's not a centre forward. I'm sorry, he's not. So we need, I agree. We do need 2 or 3. Callum Wilson would be perfect. Trying to think of strikers off the top of my head. Someone that hasn't been talked about, we haven't been linked with at all. I'll go for someone like Ciro Immobile, me. He's been doing well in Italy for years now, and I think it'd be fantastic for Newcastle. I know it's not worked out for him at like Borussia Dortmund and places like that in the past, but he's one hell of a striker. He knows where the goal is, and that's more than I can say for any of our strikers so far this season. But that's who I'd go for. I'd go for someone like that. Dembele from Lyon fits the bill.
Like Dembele. I think he's a great player. I think we see him at Celtic, and I know it's a Scottish league, but for me, he was scoring bagfuls at Celtic, and he looked a real threat. He's done bits at Fulham as well. I would love to see him in a Newcastle shirt. I think he's ready for that big Premier League move now. But again, I think he would be I think you need to give him service. And is he better than Joe Linton? Yes. So let's see what you could do with that.
On screen, team for next season: Dubravka, Aarons, Lascelles, Godfrey, Williams, Sangari, McGinn, Almiron, ASM, McNeil, and Wilson. Taking quite a bit of the spine of the team away there, mind, with that one. I wouldn't go for Godfrey. He's a bit on the young side to be a centre back, and I think we're fairly stable in that position anyway. But I definitely agree we'd need a good right back. Some good players like Dwight McNeil in there. I don't think he's worth the 40 million Burnley are talking about, but still a good player nonetheless. But that seems to be all the WhatsApp questions for part 1 and everything on the takeover. So that's me finished until section 3. Lee will be coming in to speak about the meeting on Monday that will happen on Zoom between journalists, MPs, and all that good stuff. But yeah, I'll see everyone in part 3. I'll be with you in the chat and things like that. And yeah, stay tuned for the Black and White show in a couple of minutes, and I'll see you soon. Bye.
Right, hello everyone. We are back. I am joined by Sam. Sam's going to stay with us, and Sam's going to control this bit, which is always nice. And we've got Owen with us as well. How are you doing, Owen?
I'm good, thanks. How are you, mate?
Right, I'm not bad. Thank you very much. Late never than ever. So in this section, we're going to be talking about the meeting that happened on Monday night, and that was with George Culkin and also Chi and Nora. Keep your WhatsApp coming through as well. We'll be reading some of them out midway through this. Now, this meeting, I was delighted to be invited. I watched all of it in Zoom. Bit of a glitch with one of the streams, but they fixed it, which was always good. And it was good to see a mixture of what a broader audience of fans said, whether you lived local or whether you lived all the way around the world. There was loads of people in the room. Some activists were in the room, people who spoke out against the Saudis, people who obviously want the takeover because of footballing reasons. So we're going to rattle through some of the key talking points. Some of them we've already discussed on the channel. A lot of you would have already known as well, obviously, being in the headlines on Twitter and your Facebooks and so on. But the majority felt that they wanted the takeover to happen. That's not really a surprise for me. But what was interesting, this has been brought up before, Owen, is how do you feel if the club, I don't think it'll happen with this takeover, but what if the club had a similar sort of way how they have it in Bundesliga, where they can have a small percentage but that they own?
To be honest, I don't see a problem with it. I mean, in certain cases, depending on what kind of fan base you've got, there are issues where maybe the board don't agree on things that fans agree on. But I think with a club like Newcastle, I think the new owners, they seem to have the best interests at heart, and Newcastle fans definitely have the best interests at heart for the club. So I think for us, it would work, but I can't see it happening. It's not really something you see much in English football. It's more in German football and across Europe.
Or maybe even lower league football as well. That you do a bit more, but obviously it's a good idea, and I think it would have been good. But with this takeover happening, I can't see it. We'll probably want a fan member on the board, Sam. I think that'll go a long way, wouldn't it?
Of course it would. It's the thing that's been lacking over the years from our current soon-to-be outgoing regime, hopefully. They're not football people. They've made some horrendous footballing decisions, and they'd probably admit it themselves and have done in the past. They're just clueless when it comes to footballing matters. How many times have we been over this with Ashley and Lambias, Charnley? It needs someone with a football brain and a football heart to get another side of the story, the other side of the coin, if you will.
Yeah, Owen, how would you feel that if we had somebody who didn't spend as much money or as much as Mike Ashley, but communicate with the fans more? Would you be happy with that?
Yeah, I'd be more happy with that than I would be having an owner that spends millions upon millions and doesn't have that connection with the fans. I think communication is something that's really important, especially in modern day football where everything's being commercialized. I think it's good to have that connection with the people who actually keep that club up and to a certain extent, that support the club, come every other week to the home games and to the away games, and support the team. I think that is more crucial than spending tons of money and going for things. I mean, definitely it would be good to win trophies and spend a lot of money, but communication is very important.
Yeah, it is. It's what we've lacked, man. It's as Newcastle fans, that's all we've ever really wanted. And we don't hear nothing about things like ticket sales. I know probably Kyle's going to bring that up a little bit later on. But communications on things like why is the season tickets gone up, or even just like a fans forum, why aren't they having them is enough, or just talk to it. Like even if it's a statement, it's better than nothing. We've been starved of communication at this club for years and years, and it's something that everybody talks about, not just your meeting on Monday night. Everywhere you think about Newcastle fans, us being the Toon fans, we just didn't get it, and it's a real crying shame. And I'm personally envious of clubs like Liverpool who are absolutely brilliant at it. Talk to the fans, and especially with the furlough stuff, they seen that they were wrong, but they listened to the fans, and then they reversed it because they listened to the fans. And it's like fan power. Other clubs have a bigger say than what we do. That was something that was brought up heavily, and it's not a surprise. But what was interesting, that there was a activist who was involved in the Zoom chat. Now, Sam, obviously the some of the human rights stuff, which I know you shouldn't bring politics into football, but let's face it, you can't escape this. It's everywhere. It's almost every TV show that this is brought up now. But there was an activist who was involved and said that the takeover shouldn't happen because Newcastle will have effectively blood money on their hands. How do you feel about
that? It's a complicated issue. There's no right or wrong. I suppose there's no right or wrong answer. But the thing is, Gary Neville put out a tweet today, actually, which I'm not a big lover of his, but he kind of summed it up quite nicely when challenged by your friend of mine, Miguel Delaney, who's obviously a big journalist who's very against this takeover happening. But his point was that instead of, you know, the Saudis coming in and it being a sports washing is the phrase, why aren't we using this as we can impose our kind of Western culture and values upon them and helping them to kind of bring in positive change. So I think that's the way you've kind of got to look at it if you're a Newcastle fan. But politics should stay out of football. Jason in the comments before, the working man just wants to go and watch a good game of football. He shouldn't have to worry about. He shouldn't have to worry about blood money and things like that. It's not a nice subject, but it's not going to go away if and when the takeover does go through. Yeah,
you're right. It's not going to go away. And he said that it's not so much the takeover. He was worried about the influence of the Saudis because they're now gaining more control in sport. We've seen it with Joshua fights. I think there's another one going to be scheduled there. We've seen it with them trying. And did they not get the FIFA Confederations Cup there or something? Obviously, Real Madrid have played there in the Spanish, like the equivalent of the Community Shield. Serie A have played there, and now they're trying to buy an English Premier side. Owen, are you worried about where the money's coming from, or do you not really care about where the money is?
I think from a human being's perspective, from somebody who is a human being himself, as everybody is. We should all care about other, we should all care about other people. But
let's check ourselves.
Yeah, let me just check. Yeah. Anyway, something that came up with my interview with Matthew Raisbeck, which is due out Sunday, I believe.
All these plugs tonight. All these plugs.
Yeah.
Everyone's name dropping.
Yeah. Well, we're leading the way at the moment. Anyway, something that he brought up is that it's not Newcastle fans' fault that this is happening to us. It's a good thing in terms of the football club, but it's not something that the fans should be worried about. It's not something we should be concerning ourselves with. This is an issue between the Premier League and the prospective buyers of the club. It's not something that we should be worried about. It's not something we should be like dipping our fingers into, if you like. It's something that we need to just stand back from and let the respective people who are dealing with it do their job.
I think what I do like about it is when politicians and government are asked about it, they stay well clear of it. I don't know if you have seen this, but when anyone who's asked about the Saudis coming in, we all know that the Saudis have done deals with the government and the royal family. They're not going to sit there and say it's wrong when we're selling our weapons to Saudi Arabia. And I know there's obviously accusations that those weapons are then used in Yemen. So it's like a double-edged sword on that. But the one thing that was interesting that I picked up here, Sam, is what about our mental health? But this takeover carry on. Because if you think about it, we've gone through it so many times. Do you generally feel that this affects certain Newcastle fans' mental health being?
Possibly. It
was brought up.
That's an interesting one. I mean, the fact is that we've been here so many times before.
Get it down, though.
Oh, completely. Of course it does. It's the hope that kills you, is the big phrase. I mean, all we want to do as fans is see a nice big stadium filled to the brim with a team that tries and that can compete, was Rafa's favourite phrase. So it's bound to. I mean, Owen did a piece for us in the week about just knowing the times of Mike Ashley and whatnot, and it was quite eye-opening for someone slightly older than young Owen, as you'd agree, Lee.
Cheers for that.
But imagine, there's a reason why like me and you, Lee, supported Newcastle, just obviously not just because you're from the area and I'm not, but it's that team of the 90s that were inspiring and entertaining, and just knowing this kind of team that's just no identity and nothing about it, and there's not been many, but apart from the season that was where we finished 5th under Pardiola, that was it. There's nothing really to enjoy about supporting Newcastle.
It was an interesting when it was brought up on Monday night, because George Culkin was handling all the questions, and it was a really interesting one, because the first time I've heard of that this takeover affects someone's mental health being, and I was really intrigued by it. Obviously, we do a bit with the foundation. I know yourself, Sam, and Rob are jumping on a podcast on Monday talking about mental health, but it was a really interesting thing, because it's build you up. It's like that song, "Why do you build me up?" Come on, someone sing with us. Come on, I'll see you not Edwin. One's ready for the next line. But it's like that song.
Not have enough cans.
And then everything just crashes. It's like that song. It really is. But it is like up and down. It's like a yo-yo being a Newcastle fan, because there's so much hope, and then it crushes you. It really does. So that was interesting. Another one that was brought up, Owen, and it's starting to come more of a common theme now, is ambassador roles for ex-players. Would you like to see a few ex-players come back and represent the club?
I mean, I think most Newcastle fans would say yes to this, and I'm one of those as well. It'll be stupid not to, really. I think it's definitely something, along with communication, it's something that the club has lacked over Mike Ashley's tenure. It's good. I think it's good to have ex-players around the club, because I think what's been lost over since the 90s and whatever. I know I wasn't around then. Wasn't even an apple in the eye, but yeah, it's. I think those players, like Newcastle men, they know what it means to be a Newcastle player. They know what Newcastle as a club is like. They know the importance of the club to the fans. I think it'd be good to bring someone like Keegan, even Shearer back, Asprilla, one of those type of players that played for Newcastle in the 90s in the good times, and would try and bring that good vibe feeling back, if you know what I mean, and know what the fans want.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing. I think it should happen, because again, we'll see it with the Premier League, all these ex-players, and it's only ambassador role. It's only like a part-time where you do it maybe once a month. You take a trip around the other end of the world and try and promote the club, and it's not difficult. You had a few of them. You've got almost like 4 or 5 people, and again, Manchester United are really good at it. Liverpool are also good at it. Moving on, what was also talked about was amnesty. Well, of course, in that meeting, I'm not going to go on about that too much. We know what they've said about the Saudis, and what they said about the United Arab Emirates when they come in and obviously taking over Manchester City. Look, they call it sports washing and so on. We know about what they're bringing up. We've talked about that several times. I feel like a repeated record when we mentioned that. We know that they're against Mike Ashley. Sorry, not Mike Ashley. I wish they were against Mike Ashley. Never mind the Saudis that may possibly come in. But interesting, Sam, for the next point is, when they do the Premier League fit and purpose checks, you can't just take over a Premier League side. There's also got to be now what you're going to do with the community. And they're going to be asked for the next 5 years, the Saudis. Do you think they'll struggle with that? Or do you think they'll have a plan in place? You would think Amanda Staveley would know more than what the Saudis would. But in terms of the surrounding area, community, what can you see happening?
I'd be amazed if they didn't have a plan regarding the surrounding area and the local communities, because that's another thing which has been a huge miss throughout Ashley's reign. The local MPs and Ashley don't get on, so liaising with your local MPs, building a relationship. The foundation needs funding and needs more help so they can do more. They're worth their weight in gold. They need to be put on a pedestal and funded to the hills so they can do more and help more people. It's just nothing's. It's just been a complete waste of the past 13 years. What's Ashley achieved for the local area? If you look at what teams like Leicester and Wolves, what they've done for the surrounding areas and the communities and all that, it's incomparable. It's just, again, not having a clue about running a football club. It's just, obviously, we know it's been ran like a business, but it's more than a business. It's more than that. It means everything to supporters and the surrounding areas.
Yeah, please get your WhatsApp in. I'm going to read them out in just a second. So Sam, I'll control that section. So get your WhatsApp in. Let's see if I can remember that. 0747 64976. No, 7166. I didn't look at the screen when I've done that, so I'm getting there. So 0747 649 7166. We're going to load up the WhatsApp as well. Sam, what would you like to see happen? Obviously, not Sam. Owen, I'm going to switch to you. What would you like to see happening outside the ground? I know what you're going to say is that you want that car parks, the two of them, to not be built on. Can realistically that be stopped now?
Well, you never know, because you look at the people that are interested in the deal, or are supposedly in the deal. The Reuben brothers, property experts. I mean, they own the stack in Newcastle. And why couldn't they? Why couldn't they stop what's going on in the car park just behind the Gallagher end? Why not? I think if they do have the best interests of the club at heart, and they really listen to the fans, then they will get themselves in there, and they will get that piece of land back and use it for a purpose that would be suitable for Newcastle United Football Club. So yeah, I think it is a possibility, but I wouldn't put money on it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and I think it'll create jobs as well. I think Newcastle, it's only natural that will become bigger. We'll have more staff. We'll have a bigger media team. We'll have more on the foundation, the charity, and hopefully, like I say, with the training ground, which has already been touched upon as well. Let's have a look at your WhatsApp. We'll have a look at them now, and then we'll also have a look at the end of the section as well. Apologies if your number does appear on screen. We cannot control that. Luke from Barrow has said a few things. Dembele and Coutinho would only cost 120 million. Well, didn't Coutinho go for that? Only.
Yeah, right. Only.
Lewandowski, Owen.
Lewandowski. I mean, yeah, be brilliant number 9. But is he in our price range? I mean, possibly. He is on the wrong side of 30. But I mean, let's just bring our heads back down to the ground for the moment. We're not even billionaires yet. We're not even, we haven't been taken over by the Saudis yet. So take a step back and just revel at these players that we're being linked with.
Yeah, Jonathan Tarr's a great centre-back, but realistically, I don't think centre-backs, Luke, is somewhere where we need to strengthen for me. And I'm sure the lads will agree as a striker and a right-back is probably the two positions where we need to look at. Apologies, name appears on screen once more. We can't do nothing about that. You say is right. When do you think this takeover will happen? Your guess is as good as ours, and do you think this is going to go through? Sam, are you worried about the takeover? Is it taking too long?
When you think about it, no. But like I said in part 1, that because we're all stuck at home, we're just desperate for any kind of nugget of information. But I will just add, there is no rush. There is no rush. We're not playing any games at the minute. There's not a transfer window open. There's nothing going on. There's no rush for it to be done now. There's no need to panic if there's no announcement on Tuesday or anything like that. I'm still confident it will get done. And like I've said all along, it's now or never.
Yeah, we hope so, because I think a lot of people are starting to get a little bit worried. But look, I think it's this time next week when we do the radio show on Friday. I think concerns might be creeping up as well. Andy says, how about you, Lee? We're great to get you on the board. Well, that would be lovely, wouldn't it? A fan on the board. I don't represent the fans. I must Hans. I think Paul would be quite good to get on the board. Don't think Paul will give him a few shandies, and Paul's he's like a little Yorkshire Terrier. And this one's from Unknown. If this falls through now, he's going to be devastated, like all of us. Seems to be gone on for so long, but understandable under the circumstances. Are you guys still positive this is going to go through? Has any negativity kicked in? Owen, has any negativity kicked in?
I think because we're all at home at the moment and we're constantly all checking our Twitter feeds, Facebook, Sky Sports, anything that we can find, I think it is. You do get that sense of negativity. I mean, I think it was last week or the week before when A couple of lads thought it was going to be done on a Friday and stuff, and just absolutely nothing happened. I think that's the only sort of negativity that I've felt when you've expected it to be done on a certain day and it hasn't been. But, I mean, like Sam said, there's no rush at all. It could well happen any time and we'll be pleasantly surprised. No one knows when it's going to happen. So I wouldn't say negativity, but it does start to grate on you when you're waiting such a long time for such good news.
Yeah, I totally agree. Gary from Belfast says, having our legends to be involved is a bit of a no-brainer. We need to build the settings and the facilities within the stadium, like legend centres, museums, Hall of Fame. I think we touched upon that last week, is that having Joe Harvey as a statue is a crying shame for me. Obviously, Owen, that might be well before your time, my time, and Sam's time as well. But would you like to see like a museum? Because it's an interesting one, that, Sam. You know, like yes, I know we haven't won many trophies, but you know, you talk about recent history, the last 20 years. You talk about Keegan Robson, the good times. Would you like to see something like that?
It'd be nice, wouldn't it? There is again another thing that's been missing over the years. There's been no connection between the ownership and the players that have served us and managers that have served us so well down the years. The sign in the bar needs to stop saying Nines and it needs to say Shearers again. That's a given. The club shop needs to go back to how it used to be, back to its former glory. Maybe you can incorporate something in the upstairs bit of that. Obviously, there's not a massive trophy cabinet to be shown at the moment, but I'm sure we can dig out the old Intertoto plaque and put that on display somewhere more prominent.
Scott Parker.
But I did a Twitter poll actually the other day of who should the new ownership reach out to first, and Keegan won very, very narrowly with 48% of the vote to 46% from Alan Shearer. I also put in Jonas Gutierrez as an option because I think he's sometimes forgotten about, and the way he was treated. Exactly. So I think he needs to at least be welcome back.
I think Tino's after a free night in the big market again, me. I think he's trying to pull some women and go back to some apartments. That's why Tino wants to come back, Sam. You keep seeing him tweeting.
I have a great Tino video ready for Cans Day. Spoiler alert for I have a great video ready for Tino.
Looking forward to that. Right, we'll get back to the few final points of the Zoom meeting, then we'll go back to WhatsApp before we wrap up as well. Again, the question came back around, Owen, is a duty of care. Should we be educating the Middle East of Western culture? Or, again, this is politics coming back in, but we're going to bring it up, is should we learn off one another? Because we don't know much about the Middle East. They don't know, or they won't, and they've only just started to change Western culture. Like you can see women start attending football matches, women can vote, women can drive. Do we need to learn one off another?
I think, that's probably the best way, rather than us as a country or as fans lecturing our potential new owners and the country they come from on how they should be doing things. Maybe learn from each other, because let's be honest here. These Saudi Arabian buyers, Mohammed bin Salman, they appear to be great businessmen. I mean, it helps that they have the money to chuck around, but they obviously want to go up in the world and become one of these first world countries because they're investing in so much, and call it what you like, sports washing, whatever. I think what we're starting to see is a real change in Middle Eastern countries. Yes, there are some really, really medieval type things that go on in these countries that are absolutely terrible, beheadings, all that sort of thing. And I'm not just being dismissive of that, but I think they are definitely they are trying to change, and they have made improvements that seem to go a little bit under the radar when people talk about Saudi Arabia. I'm by no means sticking up for them, but I think they've made changes that go under the radar, and they're just one of those countries that you have to be patient with, because Saudi Arabia, Dubai, those sort of countries, not long ago, they weren't the wealth that they are today. They were merely just a place in the middle of the desert, and now they're starting to become economic powerhouses. So I think it's just a work in progress thing with them, if you get my gist. Yeah, but I'm not excusing what they're doing at all.
John Bruce on screen makes a great shout about Hall of Fame. We do have one, but it's done by the foundation. So if that can be in-house and done by the club, that'd be fantastic, because we've seen the likes of Andy Cole, Les Ferdinand get inducted recently. If that can be done in-house, that'd be fantastic. And the foundation, again, do some fantastic stuff. What was interesting, I'm not going to name her, I know the local press did, which I thought was wrong, is that a member of the Newcastle staff was fearing for our own human rights, Sam, if the takeover was to go through. Do you fear the Newcastle staff, whether in catering or media, whatever it is, do you think they'll fear for the jobs and human rights?
It's a tricky one. I mean, they shouldn't really, because you're still under UK employment law and everything that goes with it. So I don't think there's anything to be scared about, really. I don't think the times at the moment help, because everyone's fearing around their employment at the moment. So that's probably I don't know for sure, but if it was me, that would have maybe enhanced the feeling a little bit. But I don't think there's anything to be scared of, realistically.
Yeah, I just add a point on that as well. I think it's a pretty uneducated view to have. If I'm honest with you, it may seem harsh that I'm coming with this point, but it's an incredibly uneducated view for her to bring up. Because, like Sam said, we are under UK employment law. Nothing like that is ever going to happen. Maybe if Newcastle were being bought and then being moved to Saudi Arabia, then you'd have every right to be worried. But to have that thought when you're still under UK employment law, under the safety of the UK government, is a completely uneducated and valid point to have.
Yeah, I think to maybe just worried about what the actual happens in their own country, but we'll not, because I don't think that's right to name her. We've seen one fan talk against the takeover happening, which I was astounded by. Everyone else seemed to be in favour, and we've seen some nasty comments in the YouTube, which George Culkin handled very well. He said, "Look, this isn't a place. I thought you handled it absolutely fantastic, and I hope George sees more." He's obviously the lads earlier on were talking about his praise earlier on in the first section, but you handled it really well. Chinora, I think, was just taking notes from it, taking them away, and obviously she's got more power because she's an MP. How far she can take some of the Toon fans' thoughts, who knows? But I did generally think it was a good question, a good summary of what the Zoom meeting was. And like I say, I was delighted to be part of it. The last thing, though, Owen, if this stadium name changes, would you be happy if we had money?
No. And I was having this conversation with my dad today as well. And my dad was worried because of people like the Reuben brothers being involved in the deal. And so what? The other way you could look at it is because they're prime real estate people, they may want to, I don't know, change the name of the stadium, or even possibly move the stadium and use the land that St James is currently on as land for something else, which it seems unrealistic in some people's minds. But anything of the sort of changing location, changing name, I mean, we've had it once before. I would not swap it for the world. I'd rather be in the bottom of League Two with the name still of St James's Park than have millions and millions and millions of pounds and have it called something like Sports Direct Arena or something like that again.
Get your WhatsApp coming in. We're going to start reading them out literally in a second. So Sam, get that number on screen. And Sam, ask you the same question. If the takeover went through, would you be happy with the stadium name change?
No. Some things are priceless. And that name, St James's Park, is priceless. It's not worth any amount of money. I know it got traded in for very little money when it was briefly known as, well, I'm not even going to say it because it's just dirty. But no, some things are just too precious, too vital, too historic for. You need to keep. I mean, would you? Obviously, City have got the Etihad Stadium. I mean, can you really? Oh, we're going to the Aramco Stadium now. It's not exactly. Doesn't really grab you, does it? It's some things are just too important. Keep your WhatsApps coming in 0747 649 7166. And I think Lee's frozen. There he goes. Just the two of us.
Yep.
So whilst we wait for Lee to come back, let's have a look at your comments. Talking about keeping it realistic. Mbappe or St James's Park, Owen? If we signed Mbappe and the stadium name has to change, will that change your mind?
I'd rather have St James's Park than Mbappe, which I think a lot of football fans would be going, what are you saying at that? But as you said before, St James's Park, that name is absolutely priceless. That name has followed us throughout history and is untouchable, I think. It shouldn't even be in a conversation, shouldn't even be in the question.
Lovely stuff from Jason Carter. Rob Spearall would be a massive fan of that stadium. Sheikh James's Park. Not for me. No. So what we're going to do now, we're just going to go for an ad break and let Lee give him a chance to come back on, and we'll see you in a couple of minutes.
Hey, you, I saw you from the distance. Hey, you, can we talk? Hey, you, I think you're my subsistence. Hey, you, or am I wrong? And now, I lose my own sight. My love is out of my mind. And you, I'm not more than
Hello, everyone. We are back as well. A bit of a tech issue just before, so I had disappeared. But hey ho, we're going to be joined by Owen and Kyle. Before Kyle takes over, I will read out just some of those WhatsApp messages, which I did promise before my internet decided to go down, which was lovely. So he says, unknown number says, I wish the Reuben brothers would buy us. They know the Geordies. I hope they do. Well, I hope they at least get it done. William from Belfast. Hi, lads. Hope you're all keeping well. I just think about the takeover. If no news comes out next week, don't think it will happen. Got loads of tins in just in case. Tinnies and Lawrence Taylor says, I think Amanda Staveley's involvement is key to the group passing the test, given her involvement with Manchester City in 2008. What about you, Kyle?
Hi, hello everyone. Welcome back to the Black and White Show and into section 3. Thank you for bringing us into that, Lee. I was actually going to start with the WhatsApp messages as well, so we can't go to that temporarily. But in part 3, we're going to be talking about the return of football and how it could be, and how it's confirmed to be back in Germany, and how it could be coming back to England in the next couple of weeks as well. I'm joined by Owen, and obviously Lee has stayed with us. But before we go to the WhatsApp messages, Lee, I'll have a look at the chatter. Michael Ruddy, NE29, you know it, mate. Definitely, it's the one true postcode, for sure. Jason Carter's put a Babe Station soundtrack. Now I don't know about that, Lee. You'll have to clear that one up with Jason, but
copyright reason.
I'm not sure on that one. Lee's gonna have to tell you, but is it copyright free? Is it? Lee played it safe on YouTube with the sound, mate. So I don't think it's from there. But if it is, do let Lee know. I'm sure he'll happily change it for you. But let's have a further look in the comments. Jason Carter's also put Cannes 2021. Is that referring to it being next year or not next Tuesday? I don't think I can wait to 2021, mate. It's driving us insane now in isolation. What, Lee?
He's got the wrong year, hasn't he?
I hope so. I can't be done with it. Like, I know the Euros and that's next year, but I can't be waiting for Cannes for that long. Like, it would kill us. Lawrence Taylor's put before we allow teams to restart training, let's see how things go in Germany and Spain. Mate, that's something that we're going to be touching upon later in section 3. In any way, how looking at see how Germany does is a good test to see how it would work out for us playing it in either stadiums or a neutral ground. Owen, I'll come to you on that point, mate. Do you think seeing Germany play their games first is a good thing for us to see first beforehand?
I think, yeah, definitely. You can't really go wrong with watching another country do it first and then us following suit. Germany seem to handle their coronavirus situation very well, which I think probably puts them in the situation where they're in now, where they're able to go back to football earlier than most other countries. And I think, yeah, it saves us as a country getting our fingers burnt and getting it all wrong by watching another country do it first. And what better way to do it than bring back one of Europe's top 5 leagues in the Bundesliga and see where it goes from there.
Aye, for sure. I mean, it's causing a lot of controversy in over Europe because France have recently scrapped their league. We're planning to bring our league back, and with players going into training as of the 18th of May. Like there's the Belgian league got cancelled as well, so it's causing a lot of controversy. What Lee, I'll come to you, mate. What do you think the right thing is to do? Do you think it's worth scrapping it, or just putting it on hold until the coronavirus thing goes down, or what would you do
in terms of the Bundesliga?
No, in terms like if you were running a league, what would you look to do?
I think you've got to look at your own situation. I think Germany have handled the coronavirus absolutely fantastic, considering our death rate has declined, which is good news. But we are the highest in Europe and the second highest in the world now, which is a frightening and horrible fact now. I think Germany, in terms of they're a lot more under control. As far as I'm aware, Jason will correct me in the comments because he's living in Germany. I think it's somewhere around about 7,500 deaths, which is, yes, it's a lot of deaths, but when you compare that to us, it's under half. But I think that with the Bundesliga, I think they're ready, and it'll be a good test because all eyes will be on them. I know it's next weekend behind the scenes, closed doors, so we'll be looking at them. Serie A, La Liga, everyone will be looking at the Bundesliga, seeing how it gets on, and fingers crossed it goes through as a success. I think it'll be weird though, not having any fans there, but at least it's a bit of football back, isn't it?
Well, Spain are looking to bring their football back as well, roughly around the same time as ours. They're going into training the same week as us, so I think they're looking to Germany as well. The problem is, Lee, you've touched on it quite well, is there's more risk in our country than there is in Germany at the moment. They've had the coronavirus. They prepared a lot more for it seems, than we did. I mean, I'm not going to go into politics, as I know there was a couple of comments of how negative politics is on football, but with our lack of preparation to the coronavirus in regards to other countries, I'm in the thought that I don't think it should be brought back as quickly as the German league. I mean, we're talking maybe 1 or 2 weeks after the German league, and I think that's a bit silly, if I'm honest. And especially if you look at the Northeast, which at the start of the coronavirus pandemic, people were saying it was a couple of weeks behind London. So you look at the players that are at risk, you look at that people are at risk all over the place. So it is quite dangerous, if you ask me. I think unless I think it should go to a vote, me, amongst all the players and all the teams, and if they vote they want to come back, then go for it from there. Because at the end of the day, it's the players that have to risk, and it's the managers and the staff that has to risk lives in doing that.
Sorry to interrupt you there, Kyle, but you've seen it with the second. There's a Bundesliga in the second division who player contracted, and they don't want to play the games, and they're all in self-isolation. So they've been outnumbered, so they've got no alternative choice to effectively risk their lives to go and play football. So they don't want to play, and I think that should be looked at. It's health comes over football, and we all are absolutely craving and missing football like mad. Yeah. But you've got to if it means that you have to wait another 4 weeks, another 8 weeks, so be it. And at the end of the day, you don't want death on your hands. You want, yes, we love football, and we're a football channel, and we're football people, and everybody in the live chat and WhatsApp are mad about football, but health is more important.
It absolutely is, mate, and it's just one of them things. I mean, if one of them German teams, the ones that have opted against, if one of them gets a coronavirus and passes away, for example, there'll be hell on, mate. They could go to court. The Bundesliga could get sued. It could be really dirty, mate. It could be really bad if something happens, you know.
Go down as manslaughter.
It will, yeah. I mean, from an England perspective, though, where teams are due to start training again in small groups, I've been told, in small groups of 6 or 7, maybe, with going along the lines of social distancing. Do you think coming back to train is the right thing to do, or do you think they could try and arrange some friendlies under behind closed doors, or what do you think the best route is back in? Because personally, I don't think they should be doing anything yet. But if they're going to start training, what is the safest way around it, do you think, Owen?
I think, from my perspective, it is a bit too soon still. I thank God we're not bringing it back at the same time as the Bundesliga. And I think we should wait to see how our situation develops that little bit further. But I think there should be plans that we should definitely be planning for a comeback. I want to see the season resumed, but when it is safe to do so, which I think is the opinion that many fans keep as well, who have the same opinion as me on the matter. But things like training sessions, I think you should bring players back into training a few weeks before the season starts to check that they're okay with the social distancing and how it feels, because part of football as well is having that team spirit, and whatever that may be, high fives, hugging, celebrating, that will be a massive part missed out of football. And I think the players should be allowed to see what social distancing is like within training and those sort of team situations, and then have a decision on whether the Premier League should come back or not.
I'm struggling to keep up with the comments because there's been a couple of good points made, but I'll go to Harry Dalton's comment. Shop workers working 40 plus hours a week. Football will be the safest job in the world, which technically is true. I mean, they'll all be tested before going out onto the field and whatnot. And if any's got symptoms, they'll be pulled out of it immediately. So there is precautions being put in place. And I suppose that's a fair argument. It means if you're going to play football, there isn't going to be any trouble with in terms of spreading the virus, because nobody's going to be contracting the virus on the field. I suppose that's a fantastic point. And Sean as well, with people with season tickets, what should happen with them? Do you see Mike Ashley giving refunds? I think personally they'll look to just knock off next year's by a certain amount. They've got to do something, haven't they?
They have to, because I pay £90 a month, and that's what, 5 games, and I paid for me obviously Man City ticket. That's, you're talking £200 that I'm getting ripped off there. And I bet there'll be fans who have got like families and kids who they take the game. They'll have possibly double that figure. And the different day, it's fraud, Kyle. At the end of the day, they're taking money away, which you haven't been seeing. Yes, Hannah, there's a pandemic going on, but you know what it is. Look after your fans, because the different day.
But someone Mike Ashley doesn't do it anyway. He doesn't care about the fans.
The only way Mike
Ashley listens is if you take money away from him. Let's be honest. It's been like that for years with him.
They've got to do something, or I think they've got to knock off next season's, on average, the prices next year.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think something needs to be put in place for the fans that have already paid. I know you have, Lee. I know Paul has for mine and his tickets as well. So it's one of them things that need to be put in place fairly quickly for next season. But it's a negative thing, this, so I want to turn it into a positive. I mean, I know what we've said about the pandemic and things like that, but that being said, football is going to be back in some form of capacity next weekend. And I don't know if anybody's a UFC fan. That's on the night, UFC 249. Can't wait for that myself. A little bit of sport back in the world, so I can't wait for that. Get your comments in who wins the main event. But I'm just happy to see football back next weekend, and I don't know if any of you have a soft spot for any German teams, but I'm a Wolfsburg fan next weekend. Owen, what about you, mate?
I'm call me a glory hunter, but I'm a Dortmund fan, plainly because how similar Dortmund and Newcastle are as cities.
Fair enough, Lee. What about you?
I'll probably go with Owen, Dortmund, because I like how they're very counter-attacking, fast-paced team. Something I would love to experience, though, and I think you two will agree, is being in that wall. That's yes. I know Robbie from AFTV's been in there and his experience. So what an experience that would be. You'd be frightened of your life being in there. So I would love to experience that if I ever go to Germany. But yeah, I know Rob's a big fan of Hoffenheim, so shout out to Rob. He likes Hoffenheim. I've got no idea why, but I'm sure he'll tell me on the next.
It's not for Joelinton, let's be honest.
Yeah.
If you're in the wall, Lee, your vlog will be like a rave. Camera going up and down.
We'll have to go live. Imagine the hits on that.
But my reasoning for Wolfsburg isn't as deep as Owen's, or deep connection, just like Newcastle. Mine's just I did a Wolfsburg career mode recently, and they were quite good. And I won the Champions League, so yeah, I'll go Wolfsburg for that reason. I hope it's a little bit better than the Belarusian Football League team. What they're called, man. I was going on and about them in the chat, and they did terrible, and I stopped supporting them.
Was it Slutsk?
No, it wasn't Slutsk. No. It wasn't them.
Second in the Belarusian league the other day.
I cannot remember who they are. Honestly, it's going to do my head in that. That's the Minsk. I was going on about Minsk, and I changed to Dynamo, and then they got beat 3-0. So the Minsk didn't do well that weekend, so I'm staying well away from Belarus football. I know Bate Borisov beat Arsenal in recent years, but I'm staying well away from Belarusian football.
Got South Korean games now.
Oh God, it's I'm not going to lie, Lee. I'll just stick with the German football, like in the UFC, until the Premier League gets back. But we'll move on to England, and we'll touch on this point briefly before. But to see how well Germany handle it is a good thing for England, for Spain. And if you were to put a time on it, on how soon would you think it'd be safe for the league to continue, and how quick would you look to get the league season done? Because we're already in May now, and that's usually when the Premier League season ends. So behind closed doors, would you look to get it done in the next month or so, or would you be looking at the next couple of months? What would you be looking to finish the season on?
I think within the next month, but anything can happen. We could have a second peak from now till then. So I think you have to be monitoring the situation every day, on a very regular basis. But I think in the next month we have to have a decision on when it's going to happen, and hopefully, if all players and staff and clubs in general are all aligned on the situation, now hopefully we can come back and there won't be any issues. But I think, as you touched upon earlier, it's really important as to what the players think about it, because
I agree.
Well, they are the ones that have to go out there on the field and if you like, risk their lives. And I think it's a very important point to raise. And I think that the Premier League shouldn't be making a decision. It should be the players that have the vote that make the decision.
Yeah, I completely agree. But I want to go over the football pyramid and see what the right time is for every level of English football to really come back. And I was going to go to the Champions League before I worked my way down to non-league and then Sunderland's level. But Champions League, I think they'll hike Champions League out altogether, to be honest, because European football flights and all that for supporters and players as well, it just seems too dangerous. And I think I know UEFA, they like to make money and things like that, but surely they kind of continue the Champions League this season. I just think they should hide that out altogether. I know it's a difficult thing because it's the prestige trophy in Europe, but for me that's got to be thrown out. I don't know if you agree, Lee, but for me, I think health's got to come over money at that point, surely.
Health definitely, but I don't think UEFA will do it. I think what they'll do is they'll have like a knockout stage every 3 games. So I know they've got to play the second leg of the last 16, haven't they? And then I think 3 days later, whoever makes it will then play in the quarterfinals. And then the second leg will be 3 days later. The semi-final, I think it'll be like that. And I think it'll be maybe staged at one area. If you look at, like again, with the coronavirus situation, the 3 big countries, which are Spain, Italy, and England, have the most hit. By that time, by the end of June, over the course of 2 weeks, you could probably get that competition done in one venue, perhaps, or one location. I think the same as the Europa League as well. You could be staged. You could be staged in the Far East all the way out to, not that you want to be in Baku, but it gives UEFA a lot of, UEFA, I can't say scrapping. It's too much money for them for the income. And I think they'll put health first, revenue second, but revenue will be a very, very close second to first.
I think that's wrong. Go on, I'll let you go.
I think something else that I'd like to raise is that it's difficult because whereas you can bring a league back and it'll be okay because a country's football back because all the leagues are obviously based in the same country, are all in the same situation. But it's something like the Champions League. Every country isn't at the same point in terms of coronavirus as the other, so you'd be causing a bit of disarray. I mean, there's certain countries that won't feel that it's okay to bring the Champions League back. Other countries that will. I think it should come back because it's a lot of money to cancel. You think of fans who travelled away from home, spent hundreds of pounds to go see their team across Europe, and to have that then just thrown away because it's not safe to resume. I think, why don't you just wait until it is safe to resume? So even say it's next season and they play these Champions League games right at the start of next season at some point.
Right.
You know, something like that. Like they should be considering all situations, in my opinion.
I mean, you raise a good point, Owen, but I just see it all clogging up. Champions League, Premier League next season, the Euros next summer that's being put back, and then the World Cup's happening in a winter, and that's going to mess up the league in any way. I just see it clogging up too much football, and then the winter breaks and whatnot that's been implemented recently among England, which is early February, I think. In Germany, all over Europe, it's usually over Christmas, early January. So I'd say clogging up and causing too many problems, to be honest. I think a major competition of some form is going to have to be cancelled. But shout to Mark B as well, a new member. It came up into the chat that he's subscribed to the membership that we've got on YouTube. Shout out to him. Thank you for subscribing to that. And Lee, for anybody else who'd be interested in the membership, what can you find on there?
Similar to with Facebook, you get first look of every single video. You also get any videos that across the internet have tested, and we can get copyright free, which is great news to see what we're up to. Schedule we'll put out the other day, planning. It's new. It's not for everybody, but if you want to get a little bit more out of us, whether it's on Facebook, whether it's on YouTube, have a look at it. Take the trial up. You can cancel it anytime you like. Good plug, Kyle.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's an episode 4 plugs, but I'm going to move down the football pyramid a bit. I've went from Premier League to Champions League. Now we're going to go all the way down to grassroots football, because if professional football with all the money, resources, and everything like that are struggling to find a date when to come back for football, what about non-league? What about local league, Sunday league? When do you see all that coming back? Because it's going to be hard. In fact, I'd say it really hurting grassroots football all over Europe for a very long time. I don't know how the FA are going to implement a comeback for those type of things, with COVID-19 still being relatively strong across Europe and worldwide. But Owen, I'll come to you. When do you think, like, how hard do you think this is going to hit grassroots and local teams, like in my area, like say Whitley Bays, your North Shields, South Shields? How hard do you see it hitting teams like that?
I think I'm quite glad you raised this, actually, because for all the times that fans will talk about the Premier League, even the Championship, big leagues across Europe, I think a crucial part of football is grassroots football, Sunday league. You know, your local smaller club. And I think this situation is definitely hitting them the hardest, because they're not these powerhouses of millions of pounds that the rest of the leagues have. And I think I know a lot of them are at risk of going under. And I think it should be something that's brought to the top of the FA's attention, because grassroots football is important all the way up the football chain. So I think they should look at possibly bringing the non-league teams back, the Sunday league teams back, maybe even sooner than the Premier League, the top 4 leagues, because they need the games the most, whether it's behind closed doors again or whatnot. They need the money, they need the income, they need the revenue from it. So yeah, whatever they do with that, I'm not sure, but it definitely needs to be looked at heavily.
Before I go on to like live Spartans and things that I was going to mention, because I've seen a comment of that before, Subterranean Music has also become a YouTube member, so it's been very productive stream for the YouTube membership group. So thanks again for joining, mate. And by looks of things, you've got your own channel as well. So Subterranean Music is there if you want to click on that. So cheers, mate, for getting involved. And obviously, Lee mentioned before what is a part with the membership group. But I've seen a comment before with if football league teams are struggling, your likes of Sunderland and teams like Sunderland, another season in League One. But I can't resist a dig at them. But teams like them are struggling. So non-league teams like your Blythe Spartans and that, it really wouldn't surprise me if there's like a genocide of teams that just go out of business at non-league level. It's going to be really sad to see a lot of teams fall out of business. But I think that's why the FA made the leagues null and void, so there's no pressure on the teams, and they only have to pay maintenance income and things like that. But it's going to be really hard on those teams, man. It really is. But moving slightly up the ladder, Sunderland have been in the news recently, and Craig Hope put an article up of Stuart Donald and the other owners there, about 20 million, where they're going to be really struggling, and this COVID-19 crisis has really hit them hard as well. We're neighbours down the road, so it's just showing it's hurting everybody, and it is going to hurt a lot of teams, so much so I see a lot of them falling out of business. But switching topics slightly, lads, 5 substitutions are going to be implemented as well. Now, I don't know about you, lot, and everybody in the comments, but couldn't we have done with this in early January when we're getting all them bloody injuries? Like, how are you? I mean, half time when we were playing Emil Crawford centre back, how are you now? But
10 men.
10 men as well, so 5 substitutions to be used, 3 points during the game to avoid time wasting, I believe. But Lee, what do you think of 5 substitutions being brought in? Are you happy with that?
I am in some. I'm glad that they can only do 3 times. I think that's what I'm more happy about. They've talked about it for a while, and obviously we've had the 4th substitute in the FA Cup extra time introduced from last season. I'm 50-50 on it. I think there's pros and cons. I think it's brought in because of fitness reasons. If we have to start football back, a lot of the lads, yes and no, they've had their own private regimes and schedules and training at the houses. I don't get why it's been. It's a difficult one because I can understand why, because of COVID-19. But should that really affect a player's fitness? They're only lacking match fitness. I think that's why it's been brought in for. I don't see why you would need it, because FIFA have said, and then the lawmakers, IFAB, I think that's correct, brought it in until the end of December. Now, realistically, to get match sharp, you only need 3 or 4 games. But It's good and bad. I think there's pros and cons with it. It'd be interesting. I just hope it doesn't flow. I know it's probably going to be behind closed doors, which you'll touch upon, but I just hope it doesn't stop the flow of the game.
You talk about match fitness, Lee. I do know if you have seen Jamie Sterry's fitness things, but if you looked at Sean Longstaff by the end of that, he was pagad. So I don't know, like he might need some fitness, and then 5 substitutions might come in quite handy for a couple of the players. That because I've noticed when we've played like mid-season, pre-season games, like the free half game against that Russian team last year, games like that. The players actually did look off the pace, so we're going to need a couple of games to get back into the swing of things. So it's literally a case of one of them. But in terms of in terms of COVID-19 and everything like that, it is things like this that haven't been implemented for that. But I'll put you on the spot, Owen. When do you think everything will be like there'll be a phrase of normality back into football? Do you think it's going to take until next year? Do you think it's going to be late this year? I mean, I know the English government have talked about a potential cure, maybe September time. But when do you think things will return back to normal and we'll be able to go back to the grounds and everything like that?
So when football is completely back to normal, fans in grounds, no social distancing measures, that sort of thing.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I think there'll be a deal of social distancing, but when we're allowed back into the grounds, and that, what do you think the time scale would be for that?
I think that when you're looking at it being back to completely normal again, it's probably some point next year. I wouldn't like to put money on it being back by Christmas, because you think of 52,000 fans inside of St James's Park. The chances of coronavirus spreading around that stadium in just one match alone is a high risk. So I think you've got to look to like next year to when we're allowed full capacity back into grounds and stuff like that. And even then, I think people might still be scared to come back, because this coronavirus, it's not going to go away. And I can't see a vaccine being found by September. Vaccines sometimes takes years to find. Yes, they're doing everything they can at the moment. But I think if I'm being sensible about this, I would say some point next year, maybe early next year, March, April next year, that we're allowed to go back and have full capacity in stadiums, that sort of thing.
Yeah, well, in terms of part 3, that pretty much wraps up where I'm at. So during part 2, I planned something in reserve in case I ran out of time. And Lee doesn't know about this, and neither does Owen, but they're going to be squaring off against each other. And I've lifted off something from a couple of years ago of a series I used to watch, but it's going to be like a head-to-head. You'll have 1 minute to make your argument that I'm going to put out. It's going to be between 2 players. You have to have opposing players to make your argument. And I'm going to start off with who is the better player between Sean Longstaff and Isaac Hayden. Now, I'll let Lee go first to who he wants to choose, but Owen has to go with the opposing player. You're going to go for Isaac Hayden, so Owen is going to make the argument for Sean Longstaff. So Lee, you've got a minute on the clock. You need to make an argument as to why Isaac Hayden is a better player than Sean Longstaff. And your minute starts now. Go.
Who would you pick out, Sean Longstaff and Isaac Hayden, right now in that centre midfield? You would pick Isaac Hayden. Why would you pick Isaac Hayden? Because we don't have another player like him in the Newcastle squad. We don't have anybody who can sit there. Do you trust Nabil Bentaleb to sit there? Personally, no. I very much doubt you do. Isaac Hayden, we have all slagged him off. Everybody on this channel have criticised him when he stupidly came on away at Cardiff. Me, Kyle and Mark were down there, and he got sent off, and we didn't. We roasted him for a few months, and then he talked about coming back out, and he wanted to leave again. But my word, the last year, he's been by far with first choice centre midfielder, ahead of Sean, ahead of Matty, ahead of Bentaleb, ahead of Key, ahead of Mo Diame. Isaac Hayden, from my opinion, should be an England regular. He's better than Eric Dyer. If Isaac Hayden left the club, we would struggle even more so for goals.
Fair enough, and you did that in literally 50 seconds, mate. So Owen, I'll go over to you. Why is Sean Longstaff a better player than Isaac Hayden? And you start in 3, 2, 1, go.
Newcastle have really, really, really struggled in terms of youth academy prospects throughout Mike Ashley's tenure at the club. And finally, last season, we got our little glimmer of hope. Sean Longstaff, the NE29 lad that 2 of our lads, Johnny and Kyle, can both relate to in a very much broad way. And it was brilliant seeing him break through. That feeling of his first goal, that start against Chelsea. Okay, we didn't win that game, but it was something to look forward to. And okay, his progress has slowed down this season, but he is one of Newcastle's youngest midfielders. Matty is the youngest, Sean the second youngest. And he's been dropped off a bit this season, but you can see he's got potential. He can do those Hollywood balls that Shelby can do. He can hold the midfield. He can tackle. He can do all those things. He can push Newcastle right up into the field. Maybe he needs a position change, but he will be one of Newcastle's best midfielders in the future. Maybe alongside his brother Matty.
You went just over a minute there, mate. But,
that's over a minute.
So we'll cut it off at about 20 seconds ago. But I'm going to look at the comments, and it looks quite synonymous, to be honest. I think Lee has just pipped that one. I would vote Sean, because obviously I'm a local lad. I like Sean, NA29 and all that. But Lee wins that one on a technicality. But it's a best out of 3, Owen. Lee goes 1-0 up. So we've got 2 more rounds to go. So Owen, you've still got a chance to pip back Lee and win the series. But I'm going to go with who is the most underrated player of the 2. And the 2 I've went with are 2 wingers of Newcastle's past. Sylvain Marveau and Gabriel Obertan. Owen, I'm going to come to you. Who's the more underrated between Gabriel Obertan and Sylvain Marveau?
I'm going to go with Obertan, I think.
Obertan, and Lee is going to make the argument for Sylvain Marveau. Owen, I'll let you go first. You'll have a minute on the clock. Why is Gabriel Obertan an underrated Newcastle United right midfielder? And your argument will need to be made in 3, 2, 1, go.
Gabriel Obertan hasn't exactly blown down many doors in his career. However, at Newcastle, he was extremely quick. He could get down that wing. And as far as I'm aware, some players were scared of him just because of his pace. I think the chant we had for him, that was a severely underrated chant as well. I really enjoyed singing that one. I don't really have many more points to make about Obertan, so this is getting a little bit awkward now.
Well, you've got 30 seconds, mate. How are we? Why is Obertan more underrated?
I don't know. He's just more underrated. I have no other explanation.
It might persuade people in the comments,
you need to try and do that. And there's a minute up. Lee, why is Sylvain Marveau more underrated as a more underrated player than Gabriel Obertan? Go.
Gabriel Obertan was once an Idols, sitting there with his vodka and Red Bulls, and he's even that gormless, he frightened the birds away. So Sylvain Marveau is most underrated because when he got over these injury troubles, and by God, there was a few injury troubles with Sylvain Marveau, but he showed talent. He could play directly as a number 10. He could play out left. He can play out right. In his favour, he should have gone on to do a lot more better things. We didn't see it enough, but when he was on that pitch, who would you pick? Would you rather have Gabriel Obertan or Sylvain Marveau if they're both fit? For me, you'd pick Marveau because he can create more, he can go past the player. Gabriel Obertan just looks gormless. Get him back to Idols where he frightens the birds away.
Well, you did that in under a minute, Lee, and well, the comments remind us it's a unanimous decision by the comment section. They've went into Lee's corner again, so we're going to round 3 with Lee already winning the contest, but. Oh, and there's still plenty of pride to go for, mate. The one that we're going for the third and final round is who was the better striker for Newcastle United, Emmanuel Riviere or Luke de Jong? Lee, as you have won the contest, I'll let you pick of the 2 to argue who was the better of the 2. So, Lee, who are you going for?
Well, at least Riviere scored a goal. I'll say Luke de Jong.
Right, and Owen is going to argue the case for Emmanuel Riviere. Owen, I'll let you go for Riviere first, and your minute will start now. Go.
Riviere, not deemed as one of the best Newcastle strikers of all time, but he did score a goal for Newcastle, and there was a beautiful celebration that came after it. His brilliant front flip celebration. It didn't break down any doors. In fact, I think his goal came off his ankle or shin or something like that. I can't really remember, but I wasn't really frustrated with him at the time. He's not exactly done anything to hurt me or my family or the people around me, so I can't really hold a grudge against him. There's not really much else to say apart from he will go down as one of the most shite Newcastle legends there's ever been.
Oh, there's an Oxcom word, Lee, for the radio show. You're going to have to go back and edit that.
I'll have to mute him now for that section. Sorry about that. Listen on the radio, you didn't hear that. It was a silent noise.
Yeah, but by the way, when he scored 3 goals, and Owen.
Oh, it's 3 goals. Even better. See, that's another point to make.
Yeah,
scored 2 against Palace.
2 against Palace in the League Cup, and Dummett scored that day as well. Silva Wonga kit, I remember them wearing. But Lee, your minute for Luke de Jong starts now. Go.
In credit to Luke de Jong, he was fit while he was here, but he was played in the number 10 role, which he has said previously that he's not a number 10. He's an out-and-out striker. He did nothing for Newcastle, that's granted, but look where he's been and what he's done elsewhere. He's a goal-scoring machine in the Eredivisie for PSV before and after, and you don't get in the sexy Dutch football side for no reason. He gets regular into that side. He scored goals. Can he go on and make it next step to another big European side? The answer is probably no, but like I say, in his defence, he was played out of position. Why was he brought in? God knows why. Luke de Jong, you will go down in folklore, but to be fair, Emmanuel Riviere did score a goal, so let the comments decide.
Indeed, and you did that in under a minute as well. But let us know in the comments if you've enjoyed this series. Lawrence Taylor was quick to call out where it came from very quickly. It was from the Football Republic a couple of years ago, and I think it'd be something decent for us to implement in the radio show if we run out of things to talk about. But if you just want this series to come back, let us know, and the next time I present, I might implement it again. But let's have a look at the comments before we go onto the WhatsApp, Lee, for in a couple of minutes' time. The comments are saying Lee. There's a couple saying Owen actually.
I struggled with that one. I'm not going to lie.
Owen's going to pip a point. It's going to be a 2-1, I'm afraid. So Owen pips it back. So it ends 2-1. Lee, I'll let you soak it all in. How do you feel to win the first series of NFTV face-offs? We'll just call it.
Well, the last two, I just winged it. To be honest with you, I just thought, what's Owen going to say? So I'm pleased I went second, because if I went first, I think I may have struggled.
I think for a surprise factor, that was good. And comment from Ollie Greggs, can you play some more rounds? I don't have any more rounds on us, but it's definitely something we could implement. It definitely worked better than the quiz of late that we had on when we were in the studio. So it's something that we can definitely bring back. If I'm presenting, if Johnny's presenting, Sam or Lee, we've got so many presenters for the radio show that any one of them could bring it back. But yeah, let's have a little look at the WhatsApp. That's loaded right on cue, actually, Lee. So fair play to you on that one. But
can you see it? Read them out.
I can see it this time. I zoomed my computer in, so it's all good on that one. But I wish Reuben Brothers would buy us. They know the Geordies. Well, don't the Reuben Brothers own Newcastle Racecourse in that as well?
Aye.
Yeah, they do. So it's it does make sense for them to have a stake in Newcastle, but obviously if Amanda Staveley, the Reuben Brothers, and PIF are buying more as well, that's more money in the pot for Newcastle to use over a longer scale of time. So I'd prefer it be all three of them, but it is nice to have Amanda Staveley and the Rubens brothers have a stake in Newcastle, because they do understand what Newcastle means to the people of the city. Jamie Rubin supports Newcastle, and Amanda Staveley's always had a favouritism towards Newcastle growing up in Yorkshire. So I think in that regard, I think the setup is quite good. If they move in and buy, well, that's another thing. But yeah, cheers for your question, mate. On to William from Belfast as well. Hi lads, hope you're keeping well. I was just thinking about the takeover. If no news comes out in the next week, don't think it will happen. Loads of tinnies just in case. Spot on, mate, well prepared. But Lee, I'll come to you, mate. If it doesn't happen in the next week, will you begin to worry?
A little bit. I'm still optimistic that it's still happening. I'm still probably 75% that it's still going through. Obviously, I'll always have doubts, like I did with last year with the Bin Zayed. But yeah, I think it will be, because it'll be 5.5 weeks by this point next week. So fingers crossed we'll get, even if it's something like there's going to be an announcement in 10 days' time or something official, would be lovely. Yeah,
and there's a question in the live chat before I move back into the WhatsApp as well. Owen, the picture behind you, is that Loire, or is it Tino Espria from Jason Carter in the chat?
As you can see by the colours on the picture, that is a Colombian flag, and there is only one Colombian man who does front flip somersaults, whatever they're called, and that is Tino Espria.
Aye, spot on, mate. Tino Espria, what a lad. And what did Sam say earlier, that he's got a video prepared for if the takeover happens from Tino? He's going to have to give us our video, like, for the Facebook page when it happens, or if it happens. But a message in from Lawrence Taylor, who's been really active in this chat. So cheers, mate. I think Amanda Staveley's involvement is key to the group passing the test, given her involvement in Manchester City's purchase in 2008. Yeah, I'd agree with that to some extent. She's got experience in brokering deals for Premier League teams. I know she had a failed one with Liverpool in, 2013, 2014, but with how good Man City have managed to do since that deal was brokered, and eventually with Barclays and things like that as well, I think, yeah, I think Amanda Staveley makes total sense, and I think she is definitely key to the deal because she knows the tests, she just knows. So it's very important to have her. So cheers for your message, Lawrence. This is from Unknown. If we want to fight at the top where the new owners will want to take us, I'd be open to a stadium name change. Controversial, that is. It would be tough, but it's something that needs to be done. It's an avenue for financial income, as it could utilise. I kind of read that as it said, it could utilise St James's Park within it, but write it off completely would be daft. Owen, I'll come to you, mate. Would you change the name of St James's Park if it meant a good rights deal, like a good money deal came in, like Etihad Stadium, for example, that brought in a lot of money for Manchester City? Would you have that at Newcastle?
Not a chance. Not a chance. Not a chance in hell. Plainly because the name St James's Park carries so much history with it. I mean, it's just ugly when a team gets their stadium name changed. I could sort of understand it if we were forced to move out of St James's Park and we had a new stadium built and that sort of thing, and the sponsors that are said to be coming in are called Aramco or something like that, and it was called the Aramco Stadium. I could understand if it was that, but with St James's Park staying in the same place, hopefully, and whatnot, I would not change the name. But I'm sorry, but I just wouldn't even consider it.
I mean, I get where you're coming from, mate, but at the same point, when it was named the Sports Direct Arena for like a short period of time, Mike Ashley was getting all the money from that deal, and it was kind of neglecting the club, kind of thing. But if these Saudi owners were to come in and say, right, we're going to name the stadium this, but we'll get an extra such and such million per season, I think a lot more fans will be at peace with that if it gets a couple of big name signings through the door, because it's always going to be with us Geordies that St James's Park is the name of the ground, a bit like 9 will always be Shearer's Bar, if that makes sense. So for me, if it does generate a lot of funds, I would be open to that. But it'll always be St James's Park to us in any way. So Lee, are you got any input on that before moving on to the next one?
No, just tell you that we've got 2.5 minutes. I'm not sure if you've seen the private chat. But yeah, there's just no stadium change. I'll be against it. Like, I think we touched upon it in the previous section.
Right, okay, well, we've got 3 more questions to go and a photo. So the necessity is for Ashley to go, the rest follows. St James's Park should not change the name, it's our pride. Completely agree with you, mate. Thanks for your question. Unknown, type that one. Do you think it will be... Do you think if the game will continue, Newcastle will be in a better position than 13th? I think we'll stick around where we are. In agreement, lads?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I think we'll stick
the
same.
We actually have more of a chance of finishing lower in the table because there's not the fans there to boost the team on. But hopefully we get a nice surprise.
Yeah, I completely agree. What a question from Unknown again. What do you think what will we do if the takeover doesn't happen, and how will we move forward? This was answered earlier on in the show, and to be honest, we don't know. I think for how exciting things could be, it could turn very toxic if it goes in failure. So I really hope not. Luke from Birmingham as well. He's put in a screenshot from the article I spoke about earlier on in the show in part 1 from House of Sound, who think it may be early next week that something comes in. So thanks for your picture, Luke. And we've got one from John as well. Great show. Get Rondon back. Damn right. That's a perfect thing to end on. Get Solomon Rondon back to the tune. Perfect number 9. I know there's a couple of comments saying we could go for better, but Rondon's the man for me. But that wraps up the Black and White show for this week. Thank you to everybody in the comments. Thank you to everybody that's participated in the show with your WhatsApp messages and whatnot. It's been a pleasure as always, and we'll see you next Friday on the Black and White show. I'll catch everyone later. I'll see you all later. Thank you for being a part of the show.